Welcome to the Magnificast Lock-In. This is a podcast that we do from time to time where your two co-youth pastors, that's me and Dean, who's here too. He's not introduced himself yet.
Here I am.
Thank you. We answer pressing questions from Reddit, from the Christianity subreddit, and we talk about the ongoing current events of our day. And boy, there's been a lot of things that have been happening lately. But co-youth pastor Dean, before we get to the current events, do you want to talk about what the youth are concerned about on Reddit.com?
Yeah, of course. As always, it's a service that we do provide. And here in the null zone between holidays, between Christmas and New Year's Day, the kind of state of exception where nothing really happens and yet everybody is driven to use the internet more than usual, I think it's more important than ever that we do address the concerns of the youth on the internet. And I know that you have a few. I have not so much questions that are on Reddit as just things I think would be good for us to examine together. So maybe we should start with some questions and then we'll do some more topical analysis.
Okay, that sounds great. Here's the first question. It's a big one. Is it bad that I sometimes feel bad for the devil? Okay.
I've heard that song.
Yeah, of course. The post goes on. Like, I would never turn to him, and I know he was wrong for trying to be like God, but I feel like he is broken. I know that we are taught in church that he is the darkness and we're supposed to rebuke him. For example, in movies, villains always have a backstory and they are usually broken and not in the right headspace. Maybe it's just because I'm an overthinker and an empath. Please let me know if this is a dumb question or if this is a problem to feel this way. So, Dean, what if we just got the devil into a different headspace?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's not the question. That's just sort of my natural conclusion of this question. The question is it bad that you sometimes feel bad for the devil? Of course, that's fine. That's great. I mean, that just means you're full of empathy, and that's great. But here's what I'm suggesting. We Christians have spent so much time rebuking the devil. Why have we not just tried to get the devil into a better headspace?
Right, just kind of try to get the context, like what made him this way? What was his kind of Joker moment where he saw something and walked down those stairs the way that he did to become the devil? I think it's a fair question. We haven't really asked ourselves, I think, in Christian history, what we could do to give the devil a bit of a hand. We're always kind of pushing him away. Could we maybe just say, like, look, man, why don't you just think this through for a second? Sit down with your own thoughts, reflect on how you got here, maybe go to therapy. The devil would rather tempt billions to sin than go to therapy. I think that's the key. How do we get the devil into an office?
That is 100% what I was thinking. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, Dean. I'm hoping that you haven't. But if you've ever been to evangelical summer camp, if you've ever been, I don't know. Yeah, of course. You know the sort of like passion play that you do where one person there's like a troubled teen who is being tempted to do drugs and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then another youth group kid who has long hair. They have to be Jesus in the scenario, and they're trying to lead them away.
Right. Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames.
Right, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And there's always somebody in there, too, that is, like, the devil who is, like, really mad once Jesus starts stepping in. And it's just like, how would this go differently if we just stop for a second and we're just, like, devil, like, why are you so mad about this person? Like, why do you want them to do drugs so much? And just, like, why are they like this? Is maybe the question that we could ask.
Just you saying that brings up a very funny memory for me. So one time I went to church. This was like when I was maybe on the cusp of becoming an evangelical as like a early teen. And my friend invited me to go see a passion play like that. And his dad was the devil in the play. And
oh, no.
He had a great time being the devil. And I think that is so instructive. And everybody was commenting on how he did such a good job being the devil and how he was really having fun up there, laughing and all this kind of stuff in a spooky way. And it really makes me think of, William Blake has this whole thing about how, like, heaven's very boring, but talking about hell and the devil is really fun, which is why Dante, like, the Inferno is great, but nobody wants to read the Paradiso, so boring. Man, I feel like there's something to it. The devil, like, he knows how to have a good time. And I think we just have to figure out how to turn that party energy into something good, because we all do want it deep down. We just want to do that and not end up in hell for it. And I think there's kind of a mutual benefit here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Can we, like, can the devil come to the cool party? But then just like, and then it turns into an intervention, and it's like,
right.
your
We're all
actions
concerned
are
about you.
your your actions are really hurting a lot of people, and I think you should really consider that.
I mean, this is literally the theology of origin. So, there's a precedent for it in the history of the church.
All right, I'm just saying, let's think about it. Now that you said it, now that I said it was like an intervention, I'm thinking of the episode of The Sopranos where they do have an intervention for one of the gangsters who's on who's on heroin. And it would probably feel a lot like that. So, something to consider. All right, well, I'm glad we got that out there. So, let's just assess the devil's headspace and maybe see if we can change that a little bit for that particular being.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. If the devil comes to you in your sleep, don't be afraid, and definitely take the power of Jesus' name and feel safe and protected with that. But also just be like, hey man, why don't you think twice about this before you go, before the door hits you on the way out. Just like go reflect on your actions for the rest of the night and see how that makes you feel, and then go right back to sleep.
I'm sure powerful stuff right there, what you're giving. Let's
bounce back and forth here. Let me give you just something I sort of found on the Christianity subreddit, and we can talk about that, and then we'll go back to a pressing question. The title of this one is Christopher Lee's piece of the crucifix he bought is pretty sick.
Okay.
And the body of it goes like this, and it is going to take me, I'm going to stumble through it because it's not the most academically correct. Let's put it that way. It says, Christopher Lee, a dangerous man, who played Dracula to Count Dooku. I saw a video where he supposedly had a piece of JC Cross, that's presumably Jesus Christ's cross, in his private collection. How do you know a guy who knows a guy to get this? I'm not saying it is Jesus Christ's cross, but if it is, that's so sick. I don't find any power in relics more than I do Paul's handkerchief, but it would just be amazing to see a piece of it before I died. Kind of a dream to see the real holy relics and not just copied mementos. And then there are kind of some nonsense words at the end here, but there is kind of a question embedded in here, which is how do you know a guy who knows a guy to get this, a piece of the real Jesus Christ cross? And how did Christopher Lee, Count Dooku himself, get a piece of this for his private collection?
Count Dooku himself, Count Dracula, Saruman the White. Like, this is what I'm saying. Christopher Lee, this is how he knows a guy, because he is like all of the bad guys, right? By being the embodiment of these bad guys on the big screen, I think the people who have these types of things gravitate towards him. So if you want to be the kind of guy that has a piece of JC's real crucifix, I think you need to become a famous actor that only plays sort of the bad guy roles. That's my hypothesis.
Right, okay, that makes sense. It does kind of probably bring you into the seedy underworld you'd need to buy relics on the black market. Someone does say in the comments here that buying relics is the sin of simony, which is true. A very funny, unique sin. And they go on to say, with that said, several churches or monasteries in your town have relics of the true cross. Very funny. Call your local Catholic chancery, and they'd probably be able to help you locate one to venerate. There was a lot of power in Paul's handkerchief. Imagine how much is in the true cross.
Yeah.
So I do like that. I like kind of warning, don't get caught in the relics trade. Just go down, ask basically anyone. I'm sure they can give you a piece of wood that you can say is the true cross and be excited about that. And also, Paul's handkerchief, if it was real, great relic. 10 out of 10. I like that response.
Here's the thing, though. I'm not a big believer in the relics, but it is extremely cool to go see a few of them. When we were in Rome, we saw a handful of relics, mostly dead bodies. We don't need to get back into that.
A handful of hands,
even. We don't need to get back into all of the bones that we saw, but it is very cool. And seeing one or two is great. I think owning them would feel awful to me personally. And Christopher Lee, if he does own a piece of the crucifix, he should stop doing that. And maybe just like that's worse than being a bone pervert. That's true. That's like 3 steps beyond. They wouldn't even let you into the bone church with that kind of thing in your collection.
No way, that's right. It would be, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about this till just now, but like, can you imagine stealing a piece of the bone church?
Oh,
like stealing a
absolutely
bone
not.
from the bone church. First of all, it would be too easy to do, which I think is kind of yucky and scary already. But secondly, man, having one of those in your house, you'd be in such big trouble.
You got to think that the bone church just existing is like its own best security system. Like
that's right.
No one's gonna steal that because it's. I mean, like even if you were a bone pervert, I think that's a step too far because it's pretty yucky.
You say that, but it is also like the perfect setup for a kind of Goonies style Catholic movie, and I think that is really freaking me out.
Oh, you like the bone church? You're gonna love the thing that's below the bone church. That if you just like play the bone pipe organ in the right way,
Exactly.
it opens up.
By the time you get to the end and you do have a piece of one of the bones in your pocket, and there's a demon who's like, sniffing after it the entire movie, and someone finally discovers that it was you had the bone in your pocket the whole time. I mean, it's too scary for me already. I don't think anyone should make that movie. I don't even want to see it on the big screen.
Yeah, well, you'll have to. TM, just for the sole fact that we don't want that to come to happen, come to pass. No, thank you. Let's bring things back down to the real world here. Let's take a step away from the bones. I didn't mean to scare you too much, Dean. I'm so sorry that we went down this path. Here's a question that is. This is just a tough one. This is a tough evangelical question. So you might have to do some regression here in your brain to get to a place where you can answer this, but I'm pretty sure that you can get yourself there.
That's what the holidays are for.
Okay. The title of the question is Getting Married by the Lead Pastor's Wife? Is this okay? My fiance and I were looking for a pastor to marry us, and the lead pastor was not available for our wedding date at the church that we attend. We will be doing marriage counseling with the pastor and the pastor's wife leading up to the ceremony. Yikes. The pastor's wife preaches and is a big part of the church. We call her pastor as well. I know some denominations interpret scripture differently. Anyways, she helps out at the church and is strong in faith. Is this okay to be married by someone in the church who isn't the lead pastor? So, Dean, you're at the you're there with your fiance. Your fiance is basically still just your GF.
Right.
But is it okay for the lead pastor's wife to marry you too? I don't know.
So, first of all, she's called the pastor. So I feel like the lead pastor seems more to be like, or at least just as likely to be referred to as the pastor's husband. There's sort of a kind of transitive property thing going on here. I don't really know. But, I think the other thing this poster is failing to understand is if it's true that when you get married, you become one flesh, they're both really the lead pastor, I think, in a kind of a little wee sense. So I would say no, you should really just go for it. It's no problem at all.
Now, that's something I didn't consider, that they're really just the same person.
That's why you get married.
Yeah, okay. That tracks.
It's right there in the Bible. This is why I don't know how, I forget how he says it. This is why some guy will leave his mom and dad. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes in the Bible, so that you can be one guy. Mm-hmm. Capital G, gender neutral.
A capital G, gender neutral guy is what happened. Was what you become after you're married. But I do believe, it's to death till you part. So once you're dead, then you're two guys again.
Now that is a question they asked Jesus, and I have read the Bible enough to know that I shouldn't be answering questions like that, because they were like, Jesus, what if this happened, and then also this person got remarried, and who are they married to in heaven? And I don't really remember what Jesus says, but I do remember it wasn't very straightforward. So I'm just gonna say, read your Bible. For all intents and purposes, you're one guy.
Okay, so that's great. I'm glad we got to the bottom of that situation. It's okay.
All right. I'll go ahead and just kind of read you. This is, like I said, a question, but more of kind of an analysis, because I think it won't get us that far, but I think it's worth kind of figuring out exactly where this is coming from. The question is, how do I combat the dinosaur argument?
Okay.
Which I think is a really good name for it. And that is what I want to zero in on. Now, I'll read a little bit of the body here. I was having a discussion recently with my sister, who I'm working on being saved, and she asked about dinosaurs. She brought up the question that how could the Bible from 2,000-ish years ago be accurate if scientists have found dinosaur bones that date back millions of years? So this person is looking for advice on how to deal with the dinosaur argument. And of course, thankfully, also, surprisingly, on our Christianity, many people are actually giving the correct advice, which is to say, don't read the Bible that way. But I do like the idea of having the dinosaur argument. And I wonder if we could kind of think of even maybe some better versions of the dinosaur argument, kind of evolution affirming dinosaur arguments.
I fully affirm the spirit of your question. I want to have a big conversation about the dinosaur arguments. There's a lot of good dinosaur arguments to have. But the Christians for Socialism picture, it's like the black and white one, and it says like Christianity and socialism, no contradiction. I want that with dinosaurs. Yeah. So it's just like Christianity and dinosaurs, no hey contradiction. It's great stuff. Okay, so the question is the dinosaur argument. The one that they're having is the bad dinosaur argument. So what's the good dinosaur argument to have? So I think it's just like, can you call a chicken a dinosaur? can you call a crow a dinosaur?
Right. That is a good dinosaur argument to have because it's so easy to solve.
Yeah, because the answer is yes. Of course you can.
Right.
Why would you not? That's it.
I know enough science. I think also, just to kind of stay on theme here and calling back to the Bone Church, this is another sort of area that is ripe for bone perversion. And I don't think that we can solve it today, but I do just kind of want to plant the seed on the podcast at this stage that, I mean, at a certain point, I feel like we've got to talk about these even bigger, even spookier bones, but the time is not today.
You know, just like I would feel very weird about owning or stealing a bone from the Bone Church, I would feel equally weird and bad about owning a dinosaur bone. I don't think that would be okay with me either.
I disagree. I'd feel great. I want one right now. If someone gave one to me, I would treasure it forever. I'd give it to my future generations.
Well, that's just because you're a bone pervert and I'm not, I guess.
I would say when you take me to the Bone Church, make sure you bring this too and kind of make this T-Rex skull my head in the Bone Church.
Okay. Every time we talk, I do have a little notepad about sort of like what to do with your remains. And
thanks.
Something I have a running list of them so far, and I'm adding that one to the list.
Thanks. I really appreciate that, and my wife is really gonna appreciate it when you have to kind of compare notes.
Yeah, I can't wait to show up someday when you're dead, obviously, and really butt into the situation.
Great. Well, I have a good final question here that will transition us into some great current events, and this is from 18 days ago. And the question is, anyone hearing weird things about the Holy Door? ? And
oh boy.
The body of it is, I have no clue what the big deal is, but apparently a lot of people are freaked out about the Pope opening the Vatican's Holy Door for the Jubilee year. Is this just another weird conspiracy? And there are 15 comments on it, only 2 upvotes, so not a lot of traction, but at least one person on here is concerned about the Holy Door. And as we talked about on the show last week, the Pope did in fact open, 2 Holy Doors by now, by the time we're recording, with more on the way. One in a prison in the Vatican, which is cool. We'll talk about that in a minute. And the other one in St. Peter's Basilica. That's the big typical inaugural Holy Door. And he's out there. The doors are opening. It is indulgence time. It's time for everybody to be freaked out about the big Holy Doors. And I'm excited about it. Matt, what are you hearing about the big Holy Doors?
A lot, surprisingly. I've seen a lot on TikTok about these Holy Doors. And somebody in the Discord shared a really important tweet about it with a TikTok video attached. So Steven from Discord, he shared this tweet. I'll just read the tweet and we can figure out what it means together. Someone posted, "Terrifying. The Vatican Pope is performing a forbidden ritual this Christmas to open forbidden portals on the 26th of December, and it's never been done. These guys don't like you, and they are opening a gateway to another spiritual realm to come to Earth. Stay wide awake." And then there's a TikTok that accompanies it that kind of explains the bigger story, and it is fully 100% AI created art that's just like somebody typed in spooky priest. Like that's kind of it.
You should just play it on the podcast. Everyone should hear the audio of it. It's 2 minutes of insanity.
All right. Yeah, I'll put it right in here.
Terrifying. The Vatican just announced their plans to perform a forbidden ritual this Christmas that's never been attempted in human history. Pope Francis revealed they'll conduct the Apertura Sanctorum, an ancient ceremony discovered in sealed texts from 300 AD. The ritual requires 1,000 priests to form a perfect circle in St. Peter's Square while reciting forbidden prayers in reverse Latin. They claim it'll open sacred gateways between realms, something that hasn't been attempted since it allegedly caused the Dark Ages. Vatican officials admitted they can't predict the consequences, but insist it's necessary to prepare humanity. Even more disturbing, they're installing massive copper conductors around the square and ordered everyone to evacuate within a 3-mile radius on Christmas night. Religious scholars are warning this could tear the veil between worlds. We have 13 days until they attempt to open what they call the Divine Gateway.
Lots of spooky stuff in there. People love to be afraid of these portals. I did see a video of Pope Francis, and he was cracking that big door open. And people were in the comments were just trying to find like any excuse they could to be sort of like afraid of the video of this very old man who can like not even stand up. and this door opening. Somebody, okay, so there's a video of the door opening at St. Peter's Basilica. The door opens, and then there's like an internal shot from a camera, and people are like, "How is there the second camera inside already if the door's been closed?" It's like, my guy, churches have more than one door. I gotta tell you, and I know that you know this. So
that's awesome.
Anyway, there's a lot of scuttle on the streets about these doors. Dean, what are you thinking about the doors? Like, what's your experience of the doors being open?
I'm so excited about it. I love these doors. I think it's great. I love the pageantry of it. I love the absurdity of it. I love that it makes people nervous. The idea that the church has some great magic portals to the netherworld is pretty exciting for me. I think it's making Catholicism fun again. I like that a lot. Someone in the comments to this Reddit thread, they say something that I really love. First, they say, "I'm not amused by this idea. The enemy is a legalist and can only enter through a, quote, open door. So the fact that the Pope is opening a holy door in a prison on Christmas Eve, which has never been done before during a once every 25-year jubilee, is not exactly comforting. And I'm sure it's nothing but the name of the mascot for this year's jubilee, Luce, or light, like Lucifer." And
Whoa,
I think that is great. I love that the doors are really just giving people something else to be bonkers about, and I'm excited. 2025, there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world. I think it's really nice that the Catholic Church is providing us something that is kind of like harmlessly weird, but that people will nevertheless be out of their minds about. It's kind of like, there are all these drones in New Jersey or whatever, who knows what's going on there. I like to just have a little bit of a distraction here to say, I don't know, the old man opened the magic portal to the other world, and who knows what's going to come through there. I can't wait to find out.
Pretty cool. I think that the Holy Door thing is great. Don't get me wrong. Last week I was really skeptical of it. This week I'm very pro Holy Door. Something cool though is that the second door. Something cool is though that the second door was a door in a prison, which I think is actually really interesting. A lot of like sort of overlapping bits of symbolism and like meaning going on there. Very cool, especially during a jubilee year where historically you're letting the prisoners free and so on. I mean, obviously that's not what's happening, but no one's leaving the prison. But there's sort of like a symbolism to it. There's a particular vibe there that is kind of nice. Yeah, Dean, do you want to talk about that part and maybe give some more context to the prison door being open?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So it is the first time there's been a Jubilee door in prison. Pope Francis has done a lot of interesting stuff with prisons and prisoners over the course of his papacy. He has visited prisons a handful of times. He has washed the feet of prisoners. He's had prisoners come to the Vatican to have a meal with him. A pretty interesting kind of like, I think, undertold or underrated part of Pope Francis's papacy. He has also been a pretty staunch supporter of the abolition of the death penalty, which is huge. And in fact, during the Jubilee year, he's been making a point to reiterate that in a number of places. And I think that this kind of door at the prison is another opportunity to kind of express something like that. It's not the case that Pope Francis is like a prison abolitionist necessarily, but as people like Angela Davis point out, the kind of opening to the thought about abolishing the death penalty that people have is actually a really significant opening to kind of pushing that further to ask harder questions about prisons in general. And I think the key about opening a holy door in the prison is that it is a resistance to the logic of incarceration that basically says, like, once you go to this place, there is, first of all, no hope for you ever having, like, I don't know, another life or another path in life. It's kind of like where we throw people away and forget about them on purpose. That's what prisons do. The holy door being there resists that narrative in a big way. And I think it is also a kind of testament to the fact that, like, I don't know, prisons as institutions are things that need to be challenged by these kind of episcopal powers. I think there's some pretty good critical questions about, like, how much does having a holy door at the prison also kind of legitimize the prison as like a, right, a narrative of rehabilitation that is not real and not true. And I think those are good critical questions to ask. But I also think if you're an abolitionist looking for a kind of window or a door, you might say, into the kind of conversation around abolition, this is one of them. It's a signal that the Jubilee is also not just a sort of spiritual thing, but has this kind of attachment to like material institutions that we're, saddled with in modernity. So I think it's cool. Like I said, lots of critical questions still, but it's good to have one there. Man, the Jubilee doors, they're so exciting. We've been talking about them in the Discord. Someone was asking really good and important questions about like the physicality of these doors and like where are they and how do you go through them and all that kind of stuff, which I think are great questions and questions I don't have full clarity on myself. Except that I do know, I mean, there are real doors that you can walk through, and that's part of the spiritual practice of getting indulgences and doing pilgrimages and all that kind of stuff. But one thing I do like about the Jubilee doors especially is that it does kind of like affirm the materiality of Christianity in a way that I think is really fun and interesting. There's a kind of like symbolism to it that by passing across the threshold of something, you're one thing on one side of it, but when you go through it on the other side, you're kind of ontologically or metaphysically different. And, it's all some great role-playing for sure, but I think we need more LARPing in the world, and I appreciate the church, like, giving us all a year to really lean into that.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, in evangelicalism and maybe Protestant more broadly, in some cases at least, you don't get that type of fun treasure hunt of going through different doors. It's like, if you're an Anglican, you get all kinds of like, fun pretend stuff, and that's great. But if you're an evangelical, it's just like you can only come down to the altar, and like that's kind of it. So, anyways, it is true. It's cool. Thinking a lot about like how I myself want to engage with that particular tradition as a weird outsider, and I don't know. I'll go through the door, I guess, see what happens. But yeah, it's
why not?
thing.
Also, as a great follow up, maybe to our last episode. The speech that Pope Francis made on Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day, the second speech he made, they very briefly but did importantly mention the need to cancel the debts of countries in the global south, which is fantastic. Really good to see him putting it there. It's not the kind of thing that is getting headlines yet, but who knows, maybe by the end of the year that will be the case. And he played up the importance of those debt pieces in his message for New Year's Day, which is the World Day of Peace, which is already released. So just to say, all the stuff about Jubilee and debt is not going away with these magic doors, and the Pope is making sure that at least there are some breadcrumbs to follow, and it'll be interesting to see like how much those things get boosted over the next year.
Yeah, actually, very interesting. On one of the TikTok videos I saw of the door opening, someone did comment and said, that there's supposed to be this whole economic part of Jubilee that, I bet the church doesn't really care about anymore. And I did, I did leave him a little comment back and said, actually, you can go look this up, but they do care.
Great.
So anyways, we're all out here. We're all out here in the comments section. We're really letting everybody know the true facts about these doors and the Jubilee year.
That's right. So that's great. That's some good Pope news. You can take that into the new year. And also, speaking of this wild AI video, Matt, I know you also really want to talk about this new report about AI, and I feel like that's the perfect kind of gateway, thinking about this video and how it was made and so on, and what it's doing to the rest of us.
Dang, that's actually a really good point. Okay, we'll connect the dots here in just a minute. If you don't know me, my whole brand right now is I don't like AI so much. Generative AI, I think, is bad for a lot of reasons, and most of them have to do with, I think, how stupid it is and if like bad it is at doing what it says it's doing. Like, I don't know, writing an email or making a picture. Hate it. So stupid, so bad. The other reason is that like the data centers that you need to power these big plagiarism machines are like extremely power hungry. They just want they're soaking up all of the energy. It takes so much electricity to power the data centers behind the AI machines, behind these machines that will write your emails for you or create a video of the Pope and his scary priests. And anyways, yeah, there's an article that came out today in Bloomberg called "AI Needs So Much Power, It's Making Yours Worse." And the article is super interesting. Lots of, I don't know, technical details in here about like energy transmission and stuff like that. And you can go read it for yourself, I would suggest. But I'll read a few of like the key points here and we can talk about it. And especially as it relates to the video about the doors in the Pope. The Bloomberg piece says that AI data centers are multiplying across the U.S. and sucking up huge amounts of power. New evidence shows that they may also be distorting the normal flow of electricity for millions of Americans. There's a map that kind of goes along with it that shows that there are like where the data centers are in particular, and like there's a bunch near Chicago, there's a bunch on the East Coast, and so on. The presence of these data centers have a tendency to distort the power of the surrounding cities and areas. So like if you live in Chicago, you might be suffering from this in particular. If you live in New York, you might be seeing this as well. It goes on to say that the problem is threatening billions in damage to home appliances and aging power equipment, especially in areas like Chicago and Data Center Alley, which is a place I did not know existed in Northern Virginia. The problem is that like a data center takes up as much energy as like a, small city or even a big city, depending on how many there are. And when you're planning, like when you're doing urban planning for a big city like Chicago or even like, whatever, when you're doing urban planning, you're planning for a power grid. And then, a data center is constructed and kind of put up very quickly. The planning and the need for energy are like, incongruent. They don't match up. The data center needs more energy than like has been planned for in a given space. So a place like Chicago or whatever, been planned for a particular amount of electricity, and the data center like overburdens that. When that happens, these data centers are sucking up more and more energy from the surrounding city and distorting the type of power that you might get at your house, which there's a lot of technical stuff that goes into like harmonic distortion and what that means in terms of electricity. And I gotta tell you, I'm just like right now probably not smart enough to tell you what it means. So you can go read this article yourself. But the moral of the story, the gist of it is that like the data centers are distorting the type of power that you're getting at your house, which can lead to all kinds of like really crazy things, like an electrical fire, or like your dishwasher will burn out or your refrigerator will burn out. So anyways, all that to say, AI is bad for so many reasons. Like socially, it's bad because it's trying to reorganize labor in a way that devalues workers. We could say that much. That's easy. That's easy pickings. No big deal.
I'm saying it.
I'm saying it. You're saying it. We're all out here saying it. But it's also bad because it just uses too much electricity is the thing. And like that's bad for the climate for sure. But it's also like bad for the power grid because it's not built to kind of support the glut of new data centers and like the so-called AI boom. So what we're getting is like huge strains on, dilapidated infrastructure and so on. Seems bad. It's such a weird thing. People have like really nuanced opinions about AI and like when it's acceptable and when it's not acceptable. And it's such a bizarre thing to have a nuanced opinion about because like literally like 2 years ago, nobody had them and life was fine. Like AI didn't really exist as it does now. And we all lived like perfectly fine lives. I mean, we still lived in the horror of capitalism and climate change, all this kind of stuff. But, there was not the added horror of like of AI videos of like the Pope opening portals to other dimensions or whatever. And it was fine. All that to say, like, it was fine. It was fine without it. And I think if we just switched it off, it would be fine again. And I know that does not seem like a cool, hot take, but just turning it off is probably good. We should probably just do that. That's my AI position. It's just like, just turn it off. And it's not a big deal. We don't need any of this, really.
No, I think you're right. It also reminds me of, there was another article that came out earlier this month. Okay, I've just found it, Googling it. This was in Reuters, December 3rd. The title is Meta seeks nuclear power developers for reactors to start in early 2030s. And Meta, as a company, wants to add a bunch of atomic power to the U.S. power grid, specifically for its AI generation. And Meta uses AI for extremely hilarious and bizarre shit, basically. Like if you go on Facebook, you can, whatever, you look at somebody's image, their photograph, and Facebook will be like, do you want to see, like, I don't know, something incredibly vaguely related to something that you're seeing in this picture? Do you want to ask a question about dolphins, like some more bizarre, unrelated stuff, non sequiturs? AI basically just trying to convince you that you want to ask it a question. It uses AI to do like text to video stuff, to create AI personas, to basically like replace customer service. All these extremely unnecessary things that already make a product that most people don't like but feel compelled to use even worse. And the idea that like we're going to add a bunch of nuclear power to the power grid is so wild to me, to power that stuff so that like, you know, in 1,000 years, when someone digs up like a drum of nuclear waste and they can't read the symbols on it and like they get sick from it, that will be because Mark Zuckerberg wanted you to be able to like go to the metaverse and ask, I don't know, Meta AI to like make you a video of the Pope opening portals to the netherworld. It's just like such a bad situation all around. And man, what a wild thing to live in an economy that nobody is planning.
Yeah, no kidding. On the outside of the podcast, Dean and I were talking about Funko Pops that were produced and then there was no buyer for it, and then they were sent straight to the dump. And AI is such another, it's a good example of that exact same phenomena, really. It's like the creation of all these tools that nobody really wants. It's the creation of like AI slop. You know, it's a picture of, I don't know, an African kid who's carved a likeness of Jesus out of like popsicle sticks or something. Like literally content that nobody wants, that nobody wants to interact with, that nobody needs. And you know, it's designed to be like scrolled past or whatever.
Yeah.
And just like the Funko Pops, it's like designed from the very beginning to give you basically nothing, but create huge amounts of waste in the meantime. So frustrating. Capitalism is so stupid.
Yeah.
Just like pull the plug though, and then we don't have to do any of it, and it's fine. And our life doesn't change at all. Is the thing. You can just unplug it, and nothing would happen. That would be bad. Nothing bad would happen. There's no critical infrastructure that's being supported by AI right now. So in the future, I'm sure that will not be the case. But like when I'm recording this podcast, I'm pretty sure it's true that like no critical systems of infrastructure are being upheld by it. So we could just pull the plug and we could just walk the other direction, and it would be fine completely. No big deal.
Yeah, you know, we really need to rediscover a certain version of Ludditism, the Luddites. People might already know about them or not. You know, most of the time we use it as a derogatory term to be like, you're a Luddite if you refuse to use technology. But the actual Luddites in the 1800s were so much cooler than that. They specifically opposed like the automation of particular textile stuff, like I don't know, automated milling and stuff like that, the mechanization of the textile industry. And they did it not because they didn't like technology, but because they recognized that it was destroying the labor conditions for people who needed to work. And man, what I love about it is also they're called Luddites particularly because they like, there's the name of this guy named Ned Ludd, who's like a legendary person, like a person who's not real, and they just took this like folklore guy and decided that would be the guy who their movement is named after. I feel like we need to like invent another folkloric bizarre mythical creature or person to kind of name the struggle against AI as something that is destroying labor opportunities, but also the planet. So maybe we could start taking candidates for that in 2025. We need a new Ned Ludd, somebody that we could really all get behind, a kind of like, you know, something even cooler than Scabby the Rat, just so that we can all form a new movement, Luddite style.
That rules. No, I love that. That's great. There's all kinds of like great IWW stuff that's kind of in that vein too. Like the whole, like the root of the word sabotage, sabos, is like the wooden shoe getting thrown in the gears of the machine or something.
Right.
It's great. It's great stuff. We need something new. Stop deifying and lionizing people murdering CEOs. Let's think of a new imaginary person who can stop AI is my New Year's resolution.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. I'm just, as we're talking, I looked up the Wikipedia article on Luddites, and there is a great quote here that they have from Eric Hobsbawm, a great British Marxist historian.
Oh, yeah.
Man, if you want to read just a good historian, you should look up some Hobsbawm stuff. He has a really good, like, trilogy plus of books that kind of give you good orientation into European history. Anyway, he has a great quote here where he calls their machine wrecking, quote, collective bargaining by riot, which I think is very funny.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, that's what we need for AI. Just get rid of this stuff. Collective bargaining by rioting against it. This is bad news. Well, there you have it. That's the liminal lock-in, the lock-in in between the holidays. The Jubilee doors, they're opening. Who knows what bizarre creatures from another world are going to come through there, but I can't wait to meet them. And in the meantime, I guess we have to figure out how to keep resisting AI. What else could we say in the last word going into the new year, Matt?
No, I don't have one.
Yeah, that's fine. I feel like that's actually a pretty good vibe for the end of 2024.
Just let it be over. 2024 is my vibe. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Well, naturally, I am gonna read the whole Bible in a year, just like I did this year, which is to say, I'll probably quit in February. But it is my resolution to read it all the way through. I haven't decided if I'm going to start back at Genesis or take your your shortcut and skip all the boring bits and see how far I can get. I think that makes more sense to me. It's probably more sustainable. That's my big resolution. And also, man, I have got to learn French for so many reasons. So I'm really going to double down on Mon Français. What about you, Matt?
Oh. Yeah, I'm going to start reading the Bible again, but with shortcuts. Some labor organizers would lead you to believe that there's no shortcuts, but as a person reading the Bible for the second year in a row, I'm here to tell you there's at least one, and that's just to jump back in where you left off. So that's my big one. Yeah, none of the rest are really worth talking about on this podcast, but I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna get my reading done. Do your homework. Keep your grades up. That's the 2025 vibe.
Thanks for listening to the Magnificast. If you like what you heard, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/themagnificast. If you do it at $2 or more, you can join our Discord community where we're all going to start and fail to read the Bible in a year, and it's a great time, a good time to jump on board anyway. We usually get a lot of new subscribers for whatever reason in the new year. And there have been a few trickling in already, and you can come chat about all kinds of weird stuff. You can see all the great AI Pope videos before anybody else if you're in that Discord. Our music is by Amari Armstrong. The outro is by The Illogical Spoon, and we'll see you next week.
I don't wanna get up for church in the morning, souls alive. Heaven come to earth and there won't be no church. We'll meet down by the riverside. There we'll swim with all creation. Never get tired, never bored. Don't worry, someday there'll be no dam between us and our Lord. Jackson, keep your hoods up.